Oh my, thank you so much. Nick, after you. Give it up for Nick Lowe, everybody. All right, let's begin. Wowee, huh? Who'd have thought? Us two. Can you believe it?
I can barely believe it. Barely believe it.
Look at us, pal. All right, we got to start with the shoes. I don't want to make you get up again, but you got some kick-ass shoes on right now.
Well, thank you.
You were telling me a little bit about him backstage. You saw a picture of Pablo Picasso?
I did, yes. I saw a photograph of Pablo Picasso taken just after the war, standing on a beach in the south of France, I think. It's a fabulous photograph. He was wearing only a pair of Y-fronts, large Y-fronts, and a pair of these. These are French paraboot sandals. They've been making these since the 1920s, exactly the same style. And I looked at this photograph and I thought, I have got to get a pair of those underpants. No, obviously not. A pair of these sandals. And
you said, get me those Picassos.
yeah,
I want to be
indeed.
Stomping around in my Picassos.
Anyway,
they
are crowd-pleasing sandals.
Oh, I think they're gorgeous.
So.
I think they're gorgeous. I think the weather's right for them. I think, frankly, the cultural moment is right for them. Most of all. I mean, just your sense of style, I think, is just, this word gets thrown around a lot these days, but iconic is the only word there is. You're an iconic individual. I think a lot of that has to do with the fact that you're tall. So a lot of people can see you from far away. Is your being tall, is that something that has worked well with, the ladies in your life? Ladies love a tall guy.
Possibly comment on that. But,
well, we're going to get into that, and after a couple wines, we're going to get into some of that. Well, I also wanted to ask, because we started to talk about it, and I said, hold on, let's save it for the talk, because I saw your guitar case, and I wanted to know what was in it, and now I get to see this guitar right now, and I just think it's gorgeous.
Yeah, it is. It's very handsome, and in fact, that was one of the things that attracted me to it, because I'm kind of a hopeless guitar player, but with a fancy guitar like that, it just sort of it deflects attention from my sort of inept flailing.
I kind of just want to stand up and get a good look at this thing. It's got like multiple outlines of the body style.
Yeah, it's. I think it looks absolutely great, and it's a reissue for those of you. Is anyone very interested in hearing about this?
We're going to talk about guitars tonight. That's part of this, okay?
This is a reissue of the very first J200 model guitar, which was designed by, I think, it's not too much to say that, a guy called Ray Whiteley, who in the 1930s was quite well-known. He was a singing cowboy, like Gene Autry or Roy Rogers, one of those sort of people. And he made hundreds of B movies, all with the same plot. But he had his one claim to fame. He had one hit song, which he wrote himself, which is Back in the Saddle Again. Does anyone remember that song? Let's hear it for Ray. Anyway, it's Ray designed it, and his original one is in the Country Music Hall of Fame in Nashville, James.
Country Music Hall of Fame in Nashville. I'm from Nashville. I don't know if people know that about me. From Nashville, Tennessee. Music City, they call it. Beantown.
Yes.
That's my joke that I like to say. Any city that I tour, I immediately go, here we are in beautiful Chicago. Beantown, they call it. I'm a jerk. I would say that my favorite sort of ornamental bit is this bridge down here.
This is a feature of this particular kind of guitar. It's called a moustache bridge.
A moustache bridge. And it's got some pearl, looks like some pearl inlays there.
Yes, don't look at it too much.
Oh, okay, all right.
That's enough.
Yeah, that guitar case down there is going to remain empty. I'm going to end this with me scampering away with this thing. So the Ray Whiteley version, did it have more cowboy ornamentation on it?
Not so much cowboy stuff, but it had his name on it, of course. And it just when I saw his actual guitar in the Country Music Hall of Fame, it just looks better than this. I don't know what it is. It's in all respects, it's the same. But.
How do you find a guitar like this? When you see a picture of a guy at Madison Square Garden in the 1930s playing a guitar, how do you even source that object? That seems like such an impossible task. Maybe it's easier now with the internet, but it's still finding niche guitar equipment is as hard as it's ever been.
Well, this thing, I just saw an advert in the paper
that
they'd reshoot it, but I just thought it looked great, and but it was quite hard to get hold of because they only made a few of them, and I managed to get this one, and I liked it so much that I thought, the airlines are going to smash it up, or it's going to get stolen. I better get another one, and I found another one, and then I found another one. So I've got 3 of them, but this hasn't been smashed up yet, so the others are at home. In fact, does anyone want to buy one of these things?
We're selling some lovely guitars after the show. That's always the trouble with bringing a guitar onto the plane. I think there's a federal law that says a guitar counts as one of your carry-ons, but that doesn't mean that the Delta lady won't give you some guff.
Or your fellow passengers. You tried, putting that in a huge.
It's a very full flight today. If you're the asshole with the giant dreadnought, Gibson dreadnought, can you please check that?
Quite.
So I'm glad that you. I'm glad that you've got a few copies. That's great. I mean, well, what kind of relationship do you have with Nashville? You are, as they said, Britain's songwriter, right? I mean,
I think that Paul McCartney might have something to say about that, but so it's very kind to be described in that fashion. But yes, I have been there on occasion.
Yeah, recorded there much?
I did a Bush beer commercial there.
No.
Yes. Come to the mountains of Bush. I remember it now. It was done. It was done to the tune of Half a Boy and Half a Man. They gave me the sheet of lyrics and said, "Now." I mean, it's one of my favourite stories, but it'll take too long to paint the picture.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
I mean, I always had trouble with Bush. I always get a nasty headache when I have a can of Bush.
I can't possibly comment about that. I mean, I don't want to bite the hand that feeds me.
Yeah, you may just be built different. Well, this is going to be fun. I think it's just incredible that I get to meet you. I conned myself into this honestly just to get the handshake out of it.
Likewise.
But Nashville. It's where I'm from. There's all these great session players there, but you never recorded an album there, I guess.
No.
You are also, as much as a solo artist, also known as a producer. Do you like the control? Is that important to you to have the atmosphere exactly the way? Do you prefer to record in a home studio, for instance?
Well, when I was a record producer sort of quite a long time ago now, and it was the new strides forward in making records that drove me out of the business, because initially when digital recording became the norm in the 1980s. It was almost overnight. I so loathed the sound of it. It really was like nails down a blackboard, to me. I could not stand the sound of digital drums, and the guitar sounds. I mean, it sounded awful. Nowadays, I wouldn't be able to tell the difference between digital or tape, but it's too late, because I got off the bus, at that time, and my style of record producing was really more of a kind of a cheerleader, and psychiatrist, in a way. And
I want to hear some more about that. I mean, I guess that maybe that's slightly going out of fashion or something like that, as these producers, come forward, and so many pop singles now are as much about the producer's keyboard sound, their DJ sound as it is about Will.i.am or whoever. I could have picked a more current artist. But sorry, Will.i.am, if you're watching this on the live stream, I think the work that you've done speaking at technology conferences is really great. And David Guetta, if you're also watching this, my deepest apologies. Is there something that you think is missing as far as recording on 8 tracks and stuff like that, recording to tape, versus everything being on laptops now? Does it make things better?
Well, no, I'm. God, I don't know. I will just sound like an old bore, going on about the difference, because there's fantastic records made with it's only a tool, to get,
right.
After all. But there was I suppose, with the digital equipment that we used to use, especially in those days when someone like me could become a record producer. In those days, if you said you were one, you were one, and you could persuade somebody to let you go in there and start ordering them about,
Yeah.
Then you were one, and the thing was with that equipment wasn't used to being mistreated, really. I think that our generation was the first one to sort of mistreat it a bit. Maybe that's a bit of a boast, going over the top. But I learnt a lot off my old colleague Dave Edmonds. He was really fantastic. Yeah, he was fantastic. He's a kind of recluse nowadays. I don't get to see him anymore, and I think it's a real. Seriously, I think it's a real shame, because I'm lucky enough to, come to the United States and play to these great audiences and things, and he just doesn't want to, and I think it's a real pity that, and I miss him, I do miss him, but there we are. What are you going to do? It's too late now.
Well, we're glad that we have you touring and giving us new music. I think it's awesome that you're making records, that you didn't just leave that part of you behind, and that the creative impulse is still firing. I'm as an artist myself, I struggle with trying to stoke that fire. What keeps the creative impulse lit for you? Is it something that just has never turned off? Is it a light that never goes out? Or
I think in a way it is. It sort of ticks over all the time, and I don't know. The older I get, the desire to sort of tell people stuff, even stuff they already know, but in a different way, to suggest it to them in a different way. That sort of desire is dimmed somewhat. I don't care about that as much as I once did. I didn't even think I cared about it when I once did care about it, actually. but I can tell nowadays, that I don't feel that, and that's why I thought, well, I'm not, what's the point of making another record? It is. What's that expression about the definition of madness is doing the same thing, over and over again, with
expecting a different result.
Yes, expecting a different result. So I thought I wasn't going to do another one, but I started playing with these guys at Los Straitjackets, who are just fantastic, and we thought we'd there was a demand for some people to buy some sort of recording of ourselves at the shows,
You got to have something at the merch table.
At the merch table, exactly.
Do you have shirts? Do you get into that? Do you get into hats? Do you have a dad hat?
Not a hat. No.
I would buy an embroidered Nick Lowe and Low Straitjackets dad hat.
What's a dad hat?
This instant. Now, a dad hat, they look great on girls as well as boys and everything in between. It's a body style of hat that's just kind of floppy and lazy and slouchy. It's just a baseball cap. Looks a little weathered. Looks like you went in Dad's garage and tugged something down from the top and threw it on, and it says something like something cool on it, like I ain't as old as I used to, something like that.
I know, right, yeah.
Not a trucker, though. You know what a trucker looks
yeah.
like. Plastic in the back. The mullet of baseball caps.
Yeah.
Dad hats are more fashionable. Something that a cool starlet, just running around from brunch to brunch might throw on.
Yeah. Unfortunately, I love hats, but they just do not suit me.
Well, why would you cover this up?
Well,
I wouldn't cover any of this up.
No,
God.
sadly not.
I hope a hairline like this is in my future. I'm looking in the mirror all the time, just going, oh, I hope it looks cool later. I hope it falls out in an awesome way. Well, before we get too much further then from the aesthetics, what about the shades? What about these tinted glasses? I've been seeing you wear these glasses recently. On the cover of, you appear on the cover of a lot of your records. And I don't see you wearing glasses a whole lot, and I see you wearing these, and I'm like, we're in the glasses era now.
Yeah, absolutely, I am. I can't see anything really without
well, of course,
specs
there's an accessibility issue here.
The tinted look. I saw a pair of tinted shades in a mall in Minneapolis, St. Paul. And I thought, ooh, that's a good look. One I haven't tried before, so I bought them and got some proper lenses put in them. And well, they don't really work, especially in the UK. People are very suspicious who wear glasses like.
Oh, really?
Of people who wear glasses like this. But I thought it gave me a kind of Aristotle Onassis sort of look.
Yeah.
Which I thought was quite agreeable,
Yeah.
And I thought when I'm on business,
Yes.
on an evening such as this, I'll do my Aristotle Onassis look to give myself a bit of gravitas.
I think it's great. I mean, the shoes, the glasses. I mean, come on.
Well, I'm so pleased you're pleased, James.
Well, I mean, let's go back to Dave Edmunds. You were in a band with him called Rockpile, is that right?
Yep.
And
I was.
Yeah. Going over just the sheer breadth of your discography took me a few days to prepare for this, just because you've had your hand in so many different musical projects. I mean, not just Nick Lowe solo albums, but you're in the backing band for Dave Edmunds solo albums and stuff like that, right?
Yeah. They were all Rockpile records, really, but we couldn't call ourselves Rockpile. And then we did one Rockpile album, which was a bit of a sort of a flop, really. I mean, it's okay. I mean, it has moments. But it was funny that when we actually did a Rockpile record, I think it was a bit like it's a sort of a syndrome of some sorts. I think that whenever Edmunds made a record, and we'd all turn up to the studio and back him up, but he was the one in the chair sort of calling the shots and saying, oh, we'll do that again, or do it faster, do it slower. And then when I was doing a record, sometimes we'd be doing them on the same day. We'd do me in the afternoon and him in the evening. But nonetheless, it meant that when it was doing my stuff, I was calling the shots. Then when it was a Rockpile record, no one was calling the shots.
Okay.
And it went a bit dodgy. And it was the same, funnily enough, with when I had this band with Ry Cooder called Little Village.
Little Village, yes.
And we got together to do an album called Bring the Family with John Hyatt. And it was all done in a real rush. We did it had 4 days to do it. John had been in rehab. It's no secret to that. And he'd come out and come back. He'd been out of circulation for a couple of years at least, I think. He had these fantastic songs all ready to go. We had 4 days to do it, so he had to sing them all live. He couldn't do the vocals later, and we had to learn these tunes up, do 3 or 4 a day, and in order to get them mixed in time. And it gave a great energy to the record because he was in charge. He wrote the songs. Then Warner Brothers got really excited about this and said, and we did as well. We thought it was great. And they offered us, an enormous amount of studio time and a huge great advance and everything to make a record ourselves with these 4 people. And we decided to call it Little Village. There was another group called Little Village, actually, but I think the Warner Brothers lawyers took care of that for us. Didn't let a little mere bagatelle like that sort of...
They asked Nancy Pelosi to persuade them to drop out of the...
Well, who knows? Who knows? But anyway, so we did this Little Village record, and the same thing sort of happened. It was because no one's actually in charge. Everyone sort of tends to hold back a bit, and there's no one arguing and saying, no, we're going to do it like this, God damn it,
It sounds like you're arguing for autocracy over sort of anarcho-syndicalism, which might upset some of the more political members of the audience tonight.
It sort of is. Somebody does have to call the shots.
You need a leader, yeah.
Yeah, you do have to. And it is a sort of benign dictatorship, I think. I've heard that said before. But otherwise, it comes out a bit flaccid. It's not... there has to be a point of view, and then everyone adds to that.
And then there's some shape that comes to it.
Correct.
So, Brinsley Schwarz is a band, and it's also a fellow.
Yeah.
Sort of Van Halen style. Who was the leader of Brinsley Schwarz? Was that you? Was that Brinsley
no?
Schwarz?
Brinsley was the leader, but he was like the dad. He was like our dad, and I was the sort of irritating black sheep of the family. I was always trying to, no, we don't want to do that. Let's try and.
You were the vaping teen of Brinsley Schwarz.
I suppose I was, yeah. But anyway, it did work well,
So all these different bands, it seems like the band configuration is something that's very sort of comfortable for you.
Yeah,
even in your solo material. Like Labor of Lust, is that a rock pile record, would you say?
Yeah, it is a rock pile record.
Yeah, that's so interesting. I never really thought of it that way, but hearing you illustrate that. I heard that you played bass in some of these bands.
Yes, I did. Yeah, I used to play bass, and I, on my night I was quite good at it, but I can't really do it anymore. It really is something that if you use it or lose it, And I haven't played the bass, but except for putting it on record, putting a bass part on a record.
Yeah.
But playing a whole set, thumping away, it takes muscle that I just do not have anymore.
I would imagine it's a lot of walking over to the drummer and making sure that you're both sort of
foot on the riser,
holding it down. The slap. You never got into slapping.
I didn't. No, I had to go and really hurt my fingers. Ow.
You've been around for all the musical trends, but I guess slapping sort of, sailed past.
Yeah.
So you were songwriting and singing and playing bass. Is it hard to? Is that maybe something as a singer-songwriter that makes it a struggle to keep going with bass and hold on to that skill? Is it hard to hold down the rhythm section and be trying to support the melody?
I always used to have a theory that if you can't play the bass and sing the song at the same time, then something is wrong, and it's probably the bass part. You're playing too much. It's too busy.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
But if you can work out how you can move through the chords, and keep the groove going, without it being a problem, having to think about it, and in your mind, it is that sort of business,
Right.
But if you don't have to think about it too much, then the bass part is probably right for the song, and it's a pretty good rule of thumb, really. But
yeah,
if I wasn't singing a song, I used to get dead fancy, with the bass. But it was unfortunately, but.
Wow. Well, I would say that I'm glad that you stepped away from the rhythm section. I'm a particularly big fan of your sort of just a guy and a guitar type songs. Speaking of how quickly it seems like that little village stuff kind of came together just based on Hyatt's availability. Is there a blessing to the time limit? Are there restrictions that are helpful in the studio?
Yeah, that's a really great question. It's like is the first take always the best? You know, you only do 2 takes, man. You know, that's our limit. That's silly. You know, if you don't get it right, you know, you do it again. You know, but I've sort of taken your question elsewhere. What did you?
Oh, it's just the immediacy of needing to get something done in a short time frame. I would imagine that the pressure, the crushing pressure of delivering a good product, I feel like that would, for some artists, that would make people freeze, and then for others, I guess, you know.
I think you're right. I think in the case that I was describing with Bring the Family, the fact we had 4 days, you've got to make quick decisions, and it's almost a fun, you know, the fact that you see how good you can do it in very little time, and it gives a sort of an energy to it. But in terms of doing individual tracks, cutting individual tracks, there's no limit to. You do it until it feels right. You know,
right.
Usually. And we're talking about this as old-fashioned recording. People don't really make pop records like this anymore, of course. You know, they're all made on computers, and you don't have to worry about that the bass player is pissed off with somebody, you know, or somebody else has got a headache or got a hangover or something like that. It's all the machine never cracks a joke, for
That's
instance.
Right.
But in old-fashioned recording, you know, when with human beings, if you do it too many times, a certain energy goes out of it, and you'll get it righter and righter, more accurate, but it sounds more and more boring. You know, everyone starts playing exactly the same every cut. You know, and that's when you say, well, what did we do when we first started out? And you listen to the first one after you've been playing it for 5 hours, and you think, Jesus, this has got it going on, you know. And but you can't see that. You can't see that at the time. Right.
Well, that makes me kind of think of your work that you've been doing with Los Straitjackets, which is surf. Now, I think they were in Nashville for a time.
Yeah. Right? Yes. Eddie Angel is one of your citizens.
A child of Beantown, they call it, Music City.
So why do they call it Beantown? I thought it was Music City, USA.
We'll sort that out later. The Windy City, they call it, Nashville, the Windy City, where the fog rolls in on little cat feet, as the Nashville poet Carl Sandburg once said. So with the Straitjackets, you have a couple releases already. You have a live album that you recorded with them, I believe. And I went to the merch line, so I saw what was up there. And Walkabout, which is a record with some Nick Lowe led songs and then some instrumentals by Los Straitjackets of some classic Nick Lowe numbers.
They did do an album of my instrumental versions of my songs, yeah.
I just thought it was great. I am a big fan of instrumental surf music, personally. And I think it's a very good fit for sort of where you're at now with your songwriting. I got to listen to a little bit of Indoor Safari. Can we talk a little bit about Indoor Safari, the new record?
Yeah, sure.
It's your first official LP with the Straitjackets as the studio band, right?
It is, but it is quite complicated because some of the songs have actually been released before, but
recently, right?
Yeah, fairly recently. Yeah, but they weren't really very good versions of the songs. It was only meant for the merch table, you know. Really. And the problem we found when we wanted to make a recording of ourselves was that we could only record when we were on tour. So we'd pick a city that we were appearing at and book a studio.
Okay.
And there, you know, that can be a problem too when you don't really know what you're going to get. And also the songs that I'd written for me and the Straitjackets to do were simple tunes, which only really get any personality after you've played them in front of an audience, 5 or 6 times. If you play them straight away, they're just kind of flat, simple tunes, 3 chords, But after you've played them a few times, then they get wind beneath their wings, and
take on a life of their own.
Yeah, exactly, and some personality,
Yeah.
So when Yep Rock, my label, hang on, I've suddenly got
Yep
much
Rock,
louder. Hi, everyone.
Yep Rock, are you here?
When Yep Rock, my label suggested that we put these tracks that we'd released on 3, I think, EPs, 4-track EPs. When they said, we're going to put them all on an album, I said, well, hold on, because we do these tunes way better now. They sound like they're supposed to do. So we got to re-record some of them, or revisit the original recordings and tart them up, new vocals, and get them smartened up.
This seems like something of a methodology for you, because I know that there are early versions of "Cruel to Be Kind" with Brinsley Schwartz, who did you do that originally with Brinsley? And "What's So Funny About Peace, Love, and Understanding" that you then felt like you needed to re-record.
Certainly, "Cruel to Be Kind,"
Yeah. The versions are pretty different. There's a very sort of the very fast one, and then there's the more relaxed one that I think is the single that I is more familiar with.
Initially with "Cruel to Be Kind," the Brinsleys, who were a pub rock group you were talking about, the pub rock really was only worked in London. They tried to get it going in other cities in the UK, but it was a London phenomenon. And the only other places where it worked was in Holland and Belgium, where they've got a big bar and small club sort of scene over there, as they did in the 70s. And we
drink beer in other parts of England.
They do, but I don't know. There's something slightly more swinging about the Dutch scene. Anyway, they went for it like mad. And we had a huge repertoire of not only of our own songs, but of covers. We used to do tons of covers as well. And one of the songs we loved was a song by Harold Melvin and the Blue Notes called "The Love I Lost." And we tried to do this tune. It was hip. It was out at that time, and it was just a bit beyond us. It was just too difficult for us to do. So I said, right, I'm going to write a song that's got that groove, doom 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 doom. The bass line in it. I'm going to write a song, and we can use that. This will really suit our club dance floor filler, thing. And I wrote "Cruel to Be Kind," and that's how it went. Initially, it was like "The Love I Lost" by Harold Melvin and the Blue Notes. Cruel to be kind in the right
Incredible.
measure. It was like that sort of groove. Does that answer your question? I don't think it does.
Well, we got something interesting out of it, which is the whole point of this game here.
Yeah. You were talking about a different style, when it came to re-recording.
Yeah, when you're re-recording.
Yeah, we ditched the
song.
Harold Melvin thing.
So you're saying that there are lessons that you learn live with the band that when you get a mind to say, we're going to make a record, I've been touring with these guys, now we know what our thing is. I know we've recorded a couple songs already, but those are basically demos, and now we're a unit.
And especially with a band like Los Straitjackets, which don't have keyboards, for instance, that simplifies
guitar
things.
band.
It's just a guitar band, And there's such great musicians. They can play all kinds of. They're a great surf band and rock and roll band. They know how to play rock and roll music, which not a lot of people do. Surprisingly, for such a simple, primitive form of. It's quite hard to get people to play primitive.
Well, it's a bit arcane now, right? It's a thing that it seems like a lot of people have abandoned.
Yeah, it is. But when they hear it, people sort of get it.
You want to shake your hips a little bit.
I suppose so.
Get the people tapping their toes. Do you find that with all these different collaborations, do you get new lessons that you can take to your solo compositions, you know?
Yeah,
are there
definitely.
different things that you learn from different collaborators? Because you obviously gravitate toward a co-write, you know? It seems like you're writing with bands a lot. Writing on
Yes,
stage.
yes. Certainly, it's the performance really where that you learn from. You know, you sing the same song. The song is basically the same shape, but the more you when you do it with different people. I mean, I've sung "Cruel to Be Kind" with so many different people, and it always seems to work. There's something about that song that, you know, I guess it's familiarity, or you know. And there's one or two others, "Peace, Love, and Understanding." You know, that song which I've heard so many covers of that song.
It's timeless. I mean, is there a trick to timelessness?
No, I don't know if there is. I don't know what it
that?
is. No, it's just you have timelessness thrust upon you, really, rather than acquiring it. It's just one of those songs that you can sing it so many different ways and play it so many ways, fast, slow, you know, backwards, forwards. It's just one of those songs that everybody knows, and the song does the work for you, really.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, and even when it's transposed to an instrumental version by the Straitjackets,
No problem at all.
It has a complete sort of, it's the same groove that you enjoy, so you're hooked in, but it's got a different feel to it.
Well, one hopes so.
Now, the Straitjackets wear luchador masks. Have they made a Nick Lowe mask for you?
No, they haven't. No, that would be insulting and humiliating.
Well, they could cut out the top to let the coif, you know, let the people know it's you. You know.
Right. That's a good idea. You know, I'd like to suggest that. No, I have actually worn one of their masks. It was an extremely unpleasant experience.
I would imagine. I mean, these guys are touring every night.
Exactly,
They're sweating up a storm.
Exactly. They don't see the inside of a laundromat.
I wouldn't imagine. And how would you even clean whatever that material is?
Yes, who knows what it is.
Yeah.
But it is quite unpleasant.
Yeah. It would have to be, you know. The Ventures, they had the privilege of being, you know, open air, you know, artists.
But you know, when I first got together with the LSJ, that I said to them, wow, you know, they're wearing those masks on stage, man, doesn't that get hot? You know, and they said there was this little sort of a silence, you know, but they said they were very nice, you know. They said, yeah, it does, yeah, you know, it does.
Maybe we shouldn't have picked this aesthetic 30 years ago.
Exactly, and then after I spent more and more time with them, the number of people who said to them, "God, don't you guys get hot?" And I found myself nowadays I roll my eyes, you know, just it's the same. Oh God, who asks a stupid question like that? You know, but because I'd done it myself, you know, on day one, you know, I came up with a big one like they'd never been asked that before. But they were very kind to me, you know, and they're very kind when I don't want any of you to be put off asking them if they get hot in those masks, because they will answer you, you know, very civilly and
I'm
kindly.
sure they're nice.
They are very nice fellows.
I feel like there's something creatively liberating about wearing a mask. You know what I mean?
They're timeless. Certainly,
there's a timelessness.
They look sort of strangely young, you know.
Yeah, and we kind of talked about backstage. We were talking a little bit about the benefit of not being the most famous person in the entire world. You're seeing right now in the music business. You're sort of like, you know. It was kind of a big deal on the internet when Chappell Roan announced that she wanted to take a step back from her exploding fame just because people were being very weird to her. And I read an article recently on the AV Club about Josh Hartnett stepping back from being a movie star because of stalkers and stuff like this. We were kind of talking about the benefit of like never quite blasting off, that the most fun part of being, you know, a star, of enjoying success is the moment right before that success happens.
Right before you make it. That is the best time. And it sounds a bit pompous for me to go on about this, like, hey, I could be huge, man. It's just, didn't choose. I chose not to. Simply chose not to.
It's not my thing.
But it is. I am fundamentally a lazy person, and being a huge star is extremely hard work. I only know that because I've observed some of them at fairly close quarters, and I wouldn't put up with that for anything. You have to hang around with the most ghastly people.
Yeah.
And listen to their drivel, all the time. And it isn't worth it.
Who wants more than one lawyer, Yeah, I mean, at the show that I'm at, we see people when they're blasting off, and you can imagine just the pressure of having so many people in your entourage, and it's just like, where's the room for the guy with the chair that sends the signals? It's like that guy's on the payroll now. We've got a guy who's got the weird chair, you know. Where's my gummy bears? All that stuff.
Well, I thought that I wanted to be in it for the long haul. And I really thought that I hadn't got what it took to sustain.
You didn't have what it took to be a megastar.
There's no danger of that, definitely. No, but I always sort of rather liked people who, all the people I liked were slightly, not culty, not cult people, but were second division somehow. And I thought, yes, I'm going to be a third-rater.
Yeah.
I'm going to go for it.
I love that. Well, we've all benefited from that because it seems like there is no such thing as exhaustion for you. I mean, it's funny to hear you call yourself lazy when I'm like looking at your Wikipedia and I'm just like, look at the sheer breadth of recorded works that you have generated.
I've just been at it a long time. That's the. I mean, it's nothing like what Elvis Costello does. I mean, he just never blooming stops. I mean, he is a bit younger than me, and he's written thousands of songs. And John Hyatt, thousands and thousands of songs. I think he's sort of pulling over to the curb a bit now. But I
saw Bob Dylan live in Newark last year. He's got new material all the time.
Oh, exactly.
Yeah,
exactly.
I think it's incredible. I mean, if I can say this, you recently turned 75, right?
Yes.
Is there? Was that? Yeah. Let's give it up for 75. Diamond.
Thank you. It was nothing.
I mean, an album of new material at 75, I think there's something about that's antithetical to the rock and roll ethos.
There's something quite creepy about it, I think.
I wouldn't say creepy, I just mean, live fast, die young, leave a beautiful corpse, all that. What new discoveries are you making? Are there still discoveries to find?
Well, yes, there are, but it's not. God, it's such a hard question to answer that. I mean,
we might need a bottle of wine.
You're not.
We get a bottle of wine up here.
You're not thinking
an extra hour.
Another, a new restaurant on the way to New Haven or anything. You don't mean those sort of discoveries.
Yeah.
You mean something a little more.
Yeah.
Well, I suppose there are. You don't want to sort of make mistakes. But
do you surprise yourself?
Well, that's what I try and do all the time, really, because there's nothing worse for me than listening to my own records. So I try and. At least I really like them after I finish them, and then I never want to hear them again. But when it comes to writing songs, for instance, I generally work at them until I think I've got rid of all the Nick Lowe stuff in it. That's the stuff that puts me off, and I like it when it sounds like I'm singing a cover song, really. And it works the other way. If I hear a cool cover song that I want to do, I'll work at it until I start to think that I wrote it, you know.
Yeah, until it becomes cruel to be kind.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Well, I read somewhere that you said that what's so funny about Peace, Love, and Understanding, that was that was maybe the first time you felt like you'd written an original idea. And I guess I just this is something that's personally very interesting to me, where I'm at in my own artistic sort of journey. How do you know when you have found your voice?
Well, I think it's when you really look forward to playing one of your songs. You know, when you, in my case, you know, when I can pick up a guitar, if I'm walking past I've got guitar, you know, one or two guitars on stands in my house, you know. So when I'm walking to the kitchen,
there's a kitchen guitar?
No, there isn't a kitchen guitar. No, there isn't one, but there's one near the kitchen.
Okay.
Because I'll go to the kitchen quite a lot.
Is it during the course of the day? Is it one of your reissues here? Your Ray Whiteley's?
It's similar, actually. Yeah, similar model. Yeah, but anyway, you know, so I can pick it up and strum a tune. It might be a cover song, you know, that I've got, or it's one of my own songs.
Yeah.
And I get a sort of pleasure when I can sing one of them and sort of remember it, you know, and it's no effort to play it. I suppose that means you've got a voice, because I always found when I was younger and sort of learning the tricks of the trade that it was always a kind of an effort to remember how the little clever bit in the record goes, you know, and remember to put that in, you know. Whereas the older I get, I tend to try and make it simpler and simpler and simpler, you know. And that makes it more satisfying somehow.
That's crazy. I mean, you said that you are polishing these songs, trying to get rid of the Nick Lowe stuff. It sounds like you are polishing these songs until they are 100% Nick Lowe stuff.
Or 100% sort of not Nick Lowe thing. It's a curious thing. I had another theory which I've trotted out from time to time. I'm sorry that it's second-hand material, you know, here.
Yeah.
But when people have asked me about songwriting, I've had a few theories, but my sort of latest one is that it's as if you're in an apartment with thin walls, and in the apartment next door there's a radio on, which is on all day and all night, and it's tuned to a cool radio station. Yeah. And you can be doing the washing up or something like that, and suddenly you notice, because you can hear it coming through the wall very faintly, but you notice that they've programmed a new tune on the station, and you think, oh man, that's pretty good. What's that is? But then it's over, it finishes, and they go back to normal programming, and then you never know when they're going to play it again.
Yeah.
You know, and it could happen any time of the day, and so it'll come on again. And you think, oh, and you just catch a bit of the intro or something like that. But then you think, well, I'd really like to learn this tune, you know, for my show. You know, I'd really like to learn it, and so you make arrangements for the next time they play. You'll have a wine glass handy, you know, so when next time you hear it, you can stick a wine glass up to the wall. You hear a little bit more of it. You get the middle bit, you know, just the middle bit, and you can't quite get that last bit and what they're singing about, but. And then eventually you learn the whole song, but it's always by listening. If I try and write a song myself, it sounds real clunky and stiff. You know, the best songs I've written are ones that somehow it feels as if they've been written before. And I don't mean just because I've stolen a bit, you know, from somebody else. Everybody does that in some shape or form.
No,
it's like an entity. The entity. Seems like it exists, you know, and all you've got to do is listen for it. And that might take, you know, a week or two, you know, but you just sort of listen for it, and then suddenly the whole thing comes into focus. And that's how I find it works. It's like being sort of mentally deficient somehow, you know.
No, you're sort of tuning into the like subcurrent that's underneath it all. Like it all comes from somewhere. Everything's transference, right?
I wish I'd said it like that.
It certainly wouldn't have taken so long. So why don't we leave it there, folks? One more time for Nick Lowe.